Coming up on iOS today, it's time to talk about some of the most productive, most creative, most useful apps for your iPhone and your iPad. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is iOS Today, episode 636, recorded Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. Productive, creative, useful, and entertaining apps for iOS. This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by 8 Sleep. Good sleep is the ultimate game changer, and the pod cover is the ultimate sleep machine. Go to 8sleep.com/iOS to check out the pod cover and save $150 at checkout. 8 Sleep currently ships within the USA, Canada, the UK, and select countries in the EU and Australia. Welcome back to iOS Today, or welcome to iOS Today if this is your first show. If it is, well, then you should understand that this show today is a little bit different from normal because our pal Rosemary Orchard is not here with us this week. I, of course, am Mikah Sargent, and this iOS Today is the show where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, HomePodOS, watchOS. Look, it's all the OSs, and sometimes I remember the list and sometimes I don't because Apple has a lot of platforms, and we love to talk about them here on the show and help you make the most of those platforms and the devices that run those platforms. Joining us today, I'm so excited to have him back in the new year. It's Christopher Lawley. Welcome back to the show, Christopher.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be back.
Awesome. And today is a very special episode because I was talking to you before we had sort of ironed out the details for what the show was going to be. And you put forth a few ideas, and I thought, I know what we should do. I should take the opportunity to see what you use on a day-to-day basis or at least every week as your kind of main apps on the platform, outside, of course, from the first-party apps that exist and maybe some that we had talked about on the show. So as is your way, you sent me this fantastic, super detailed list, which it may sound like I genuinely am always so pleased to get those, to get that much information and get to kind of comb through it. And so I picked out some that we haven't talked about a whole lot on the show so that they might be new to our listeners, but also, of course, give you the opportunity to talk about some of the great stuff that you're doing. Now, before we get to that, though, I was hoping that you could take a second to brag about yourself for a little bit, because if I remember correctly, the last time we had you on the show, we didn't talk much about that other than at the end where folks were told where they could go to follow the work that you do. But you are constantly talking about doing awesome stuff on your iPad and your iPhone. So what is it that you do, Christopher?
So my main job is I'm a YouTuber. I make videos about the iPad, the iPhone, the Mac, all the Apple stuff. I talk a lot about productivity apps and automation and stuff that I'm sure your listeners would find interesting. I do a lot from the iPad. For about 5 years, I only worked on the iPad. Then some stuff happened and I had to go. I'm about 50-50 on the iPad and the Mac now and stuff. But I work, I do a lot of work from the iPad, and I talk about the stuff that I do from there. You know, it could be things like writing code. It could be automations, productivity stuff. I talk a lot about that. I'm also a photographer. I do a lot of landscape and product photography stuff. It's hard to brag about yourself because I always forget like what else I do. But it's like I have a website. You can go to the untitled.site. I have all my stuff there, but I started doing YouTube stuff about 6 years ago. And now I've been doing it full time as my main job for a little over 2 years now. And I absolutely love it. Like, it's so much fun to like be able to make videos about apps and shortcuts and devices that I really like and I use and I think other people might like.
Beautiful. Well, let's dig into that. So the first kind of category we're going to talk about today is productivity. And you've mentioned, well, like I said, several apps, but we're going to talk about three. And I was hoping we could kick things off with Things 3. And the reason why I'm especially excited to talk about Things 3 is because I don't know that Rosemary or I have ever mentioned this app. And it's a pretty popular app, but she and I have used other apps in its place. And so I am curious to hear about how you use Things 3 on your various Apple devices.
So for Things 3 for me is like the backbone of my life. It's a task manager. It's does project management and all that stuff in there. And it has a very elegant design. I think with a lot of task managers, an issue that they have is that they can add a billion buttons really easily. Task managers can be one of those apps that gets overwhelmed with UI elements. And Things 3 does a really good job of making sure, like, you know, they put things in menus and they don't overwhelm the user. And it's very intuitive as to what each button does. But I manage my whole life out of Things. I manage my personal projects. I manage my life. I'm moving. I'm literally, as soon as we're done recording here, I'm packing up this wall that's behind me. If you're watching the video feed, that's it. And I am moving tomorrow. My whole life is in boxes right now. So I've been managing that move in Things. I manage all my video projects, my photography projects, sponsor stuff. Everything gets managed in Things. And what I like about it is it's really easy to organize things. So you can break it down in certain categories. So by default, you have like your typical task manager buckets, like today, upcoming, stuff that doesn't have dates, your someday list, things like that. You have those typical buckets, but then you can make your own. And there's two different kinds of buckets that you can make. There's an area and there's a project. Areas are for things like just general work. Like work is not a project that will ever end for me. So like I use an area for that. Personal life. Hopefully my personal life isn't going to end anytime soon. So it's just a general area for that. But then you can start to add projects to those areas. So what I do is for like work stuff, I add video projects. So right now, the video I will be publishing tomorrow is what's on my iPad. It's kind of like perfect with what we're talking about here. I'm going to be going into a ton of detail on apps that are on my iPad. So I have a project in my work area that says what's on my iPad, and it has all the steps that I do to, you know, when I create videos, because a lot of times I'm working on multiple videos at the same time, and I can, you know, put something on the back burner for a couple of days or even a couple of weeks. So it's nice to be able to come in and see like the state of where everything is at and like what's the next steps. And for me, Things, with its design and like its features, the way they mix together, it's just perfect for the way my brain works. It's hard to like tell somebody like, yes, this is the task manager you should absolutely go use, because everyone's brains work a little differently. For me, Things works really well for me. I know like Rosemary is a big OmniFocus user. I'm sure she's talked about OmniFocus a lot on here, and it's a great app. It just doesn't work with the way my brain works. So that's where like task managers can get a little rough. But the nice thing about Things is it can be as simple as you want it to be, or you can make it as complex as you want it to be. If you just want a list of tasks that, hey, I want to do today, or I want to do in the next coming weeks, you can absolutely use it that way. In an upcoming update, and I'm on the beta for this, Things is getting updated shortcut support, and it's going to be awesome. I'm very excited about the updated shortcut support. They're doing a lot with that.
Nice. Now, another app, and we have talked a little bit more about this. Oh, and I should mention $9.99 in the App Store. So an upfront purchase. A lot of times, especially people who listen to this show, we hear love that they can just buy it and own it and bop it, twist it, etc. So $9.99 in the App Store. The Things 3 for iPad is $19.99, and so it's a great sort of premium app that you know from the get-go you will be able to use and get things done, as it were. This next app is Craft. And Craft, I have certainly heard about before. We have talked a little bit about it on the show, but I wanted to hear specifically about how you use Craft, the sort of document and notes editor.
So for me, Craft and Things are the backbone to my workflow. If every other app went away besides like my video editor and photo editor and stuff, but like if we're just talking productivity apps, if all the other apps went away, but these two stayed, I would still be able to get my work done. But if these went away, I would be hurting. What I like about Craft is it's a notes app mixed with a documents app. You can use it for as simple as stuff as just like, hey, I'm writing down, a quick thing that just popped in my head, or I'm writing down a shopping list or something like that. You can use it for that. But like Things, it can go from being a really simple app to a really like advanced app that can do a lot of things. So in Craft, you can link notes together. You can use like the @ symbol and type the note name, and that'll link a note to another note. And then it does what's called backlinking. So at the bottom of a note, when you link the two together, you can scroll down to the bottom, you can hit the backlink option, and it'll jump back to the previous note that you've linked to. It's kind of confusing to talk about over audio. But once you see it, it makes sense. I really like that feature. Craft also has support for like putting documents within documents, table support, all sorts of different things that like advanced note-taking apps and document apps should have. And it's got really great collaborative support. So you can publish a workspace and work on a workspace with a bunch of other people. And a workspace is basically the collection of documents. So you can have your personal workspace, and then you can have shared workspaces with other people. And those shared workspaces, instead of something like Google Docs where you're having to share out an individual document every single time, you share out the workspace, and whoever has access to that workspace will always has access to all the documents that is in that workspace, which is such a nice feature. I think that's a really nice touch. They also have support for Markdown. So if you're a Markdown user, you can write in Markdown. That's a big deal for me. So you can use the pound signs to get headings, asterisk, type of word, asterisk, bold, underlines for italicized, all that. All the Markdown stuff is supported in there. And it does a really good job of that. So it doesn't leave it as plain text Markdown. It renders it out. So if you do bold something, you see it as bold in the document, which some people like, some people don't. I know that's like if you do Markdown stuff, that can be a source of contention between certain people. I wouldn't mind a setting that said, hey, don't ever render this out, but it is nice because I write scripts and stuff in there. So I can just, when I'm reading my script in front of a video or something like that, I just have my iPad in front of me and I'm reading it right from Craft. So it is nice that those things do render out. But yeah, Craft is just a really nice app to be able to like sit down and write in, whether it's I'm just note taking or writing out an outline, or if I'm writing like a 10,000 word script, which is something I do way too often.
So I have Craft open here, and just kind of scrolling through it to show some of the incredible things. I mean, the templates that are here, where you can find even just a jumping off point. So if I wanted to track my daily habits, for example, and look, I love that it's got Unsplash integration, which is a great photo service for being able to get images that you can use completely for free. And then it even has, little tips on how to use this template specifically, how to create the daily habit tracker, and then all of this information for whether you are tracking those daily habits. I like there's one, a flower planting diary. So if you, regularly go in and you plant flowers, you can keep track of when they're being planted, when you need to update them, that kind of thing. And then The swipeability I also very much like about this app. The fact that, at any time I can make some edits to each line. This line by line content editing stuff is very nice. And then actionable text throughout the entire system is also quite nice. So yeah, Craft is very clever. And I'm not surprised that it has made your list for sure because of how just versatile it is. It's pretty amazing. All right, let's round out the productivity category with an app that I have I certainly have on my device, but I haven't made lots of use of, and I'm curious to hear about your use of Runestone.
So Runestone is a plain text editor for writing code, or you could just write plain text into it if you want. It has support for syntax highlighting for a bunch of different languages. I'm using it right now primarily because I'm in the process of rebuilding my website. It was kind of broken. So now I'm in the process of fixing it, making it look nice and neat. And I'm using Runestone to rewrite that code or add new lines or modify it or whatever. And I really like what the developer behind it, his name's Simon Stobering, has done with it. So the core of Runestone is hooked into the Files app. The Files app is the brain of the iPad, the iPhone. Like it's where all your documents are. So it makes sense when you're building a text editor to hook it into that. So when you open the app, you just pull whatever document you want from the Files app, from the Files view, from in Runestone, and then it opens it up in the text editor. And if you want to create something, you can create something from that view as well. Simon also did a really good job with the customizability of Runestone. So if you are somebody that has a very particular taste about your text editor, you want things in a very specific way, you can do that in Runestone. Custom fonts, sizes, you can change what the tab how many spaces the tab button does. I'm trying to remember our stuff off the top of my head. There's themes, appearance stuff, settings, all sorts of things. He did a really good job at understanding people that write code have opinions about their text editors. So he did a really good job at like balancing all that out. And it's just a great app if you're somebody that writes code on your iPad. I pair it with an app called Working Copy also, which is a Git client. And so basically Working Copy, you're able to like clone a repository of whatever, for me, it's my website, and you can add it as a location in Files. So that way, whenever I need to edit something or create a new file or something for my website, I just go into Runestone, select the Working Copy location, and then browse to wherever that document is or wherever I want to create a new document. It has that really nice integration together with the system.
Nice. Yeah, here's a look at some of the settings here. And by some, I mean quite a few. You can make adjustments to the appearance, change the text that you have, definitely some indentation thoughts that people have based on what they are coding in. Invisible characters, whether those show up, lines. I mean, you've got everything you could possibly want to make adjustments to the document and how you go about editing. I like all of the options. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I just remembered, if you pay for it, there's a game in there as well. So, yeah. If you liked Flappy Bird, it's very Flappy Bird reminiscent. So, yeah. And if I remember correctly, Simon made the game in Runestone.
Oh, that's amazing.
Correctly. He wrote the game in Runestone, and it's in Runestone. So it's like game inception.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's very cool. And there is a little look at Runestone for the iPhone and iPad. I believe it is time for us to take a little break before we come back with even more awesome apps to help you get things done. Before we do that, though, let me tell you a little bit about 8 Sleep. We're bringing you this episode of iOS Today and bringing me night after night of excellent sleep. Because, as I've said before, good sleep is the ultimate game changer, and the pod cover is the ultimate sleep machine to help you get that good sleep. Consistent good sleep can help reduce the likelihood of serious health issues. It can decrease the risk of heart disease. It can lower blood pressure. It can even reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. So if you struggle with falling asleep at night, if you wake up in the middle of the night, if you argue with your partner over the thermostat, well, this is the answer to all of those problems. The 8 Sleep pod cover works hard all night long to improve your sleep, so you don't have to be the one worrying about it. I love my 8 Sleep pod cover. So it goes, I have a mattress, I got a king size mattress, and I'm happy with that mattress because 8 Sleep also does have mattress options. But if you've already got your mattress and you just want to add the thermoregulation to it, you can. That's what we did. And put it on. The process was kind of fun, learning about, how to set it all up and get it all working. And you put some water inside of the tank, and then it uses that water to actually do the thermoregulation. But it has made so much of a difference for me. I used to wake up in the middle of the night super hot and uncomfortable. And this device makes sure that I remain cool at night while I'm sleeping. And then it can also help you wake up in the morning. There's a smart alarm feature, for example, that will vibrate the bed. It has these vibration motors inside, and then also heat up the bed, or you can actually have it cool down, but heating up is what's better to help you wake up in the morning, because our bodies, or our brains rather, go, oh, the sun is out. That's why we're feeling warm right now. So it's time to wake up and get going. The pod cover will fit any mattress and allows you to adjust the temperature of your sleeping environment, providing the optimal temperature that gets you the best night's sleep. The pod cover features dual zone temperature control, so you and your partner can set your sides of the bed to as cool as 55 degrees Fahrenheit or as hot as 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Based on your biometrics, the environment, and sleep stages, the pod cover makes temperature adjustments throughout the night that limit wake-ups and increase your percentage of deep sleep. I used to do a podcast about sleep science and dreams, and I learned a lot about the stages of sleep. And that deep sleep, that stage of sleep where you are actually restoring your body, it's so very important to get down into that deep sleep. And so any opportunity to increase the length of time you spend in that stage of sleep is good, because as we get older, our deep sleep stage decreases more and more and more and more as we get older. So our body is not restoring as much as it used to. In addition to its best-in-class temperature regulation, the pod cover has sensors that help you track your health and sleep metrics without the need to use any wearable devices. So I can get a notification that says, hey, your heart rate took a while to drop last night. Is it possible you ate something before you went to bed? Did you have coffee late in the day? It can give you more of an understanding of why your sleep might be affected, which is just fantastic. Frankly, better sleep is the health habit you're going to love sticking to night after night. I can tell you for sure. It is wonderful to get good sleep. You can wake up fully energized with a pod cover so you can tackle whatever life throws at you. Go to 8sleep.com/iOS. Save $150 at checkout on the pod cover. 8 Sleep currently ships within the USA, Canada, the UK, and select countries in the EU and Australia. So go to 8sleep.com/iOS to check it out. And thank you, 8 Sleep, for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. All right, we are back from the break, back into the show, and I have to tell you, I'm very excited to hear about this next one, because we were just talking, we being Leo Laporte and myself, were just talking about this app making its way to the iPad. It's DaVinci Resolve on the iPad, and you're using it?
Yes, I've been using it for a little while now. I got in on the beta of it, so I got it a few weeks before it was officially out, and I've been playing with it, and I'm so excited. Like, I haven't been this excited about a new iPad app in a really long time. So let me explain what DaVinci Resolve is for those that don't know. It is a non-linear video editor. It's a traditional modern video editor, and it's something that is a standard in like the television industry, movie industry, documentary industry, like big budget industries. It is a standard video editor. It's not one of these video editors that's brought like that's just like kind of popping up out of nowhere. It's a big deal. And DaVinci Resolve on the iPad is the full version of the desktop of the desktop app. They actually ported part of the desktop app over to the iPad. So DaVinci Resolve is broken up into, I think it's 5 or 6 pages. I can't remember off the top of my head. You have like your typical editing page, you have a color grade page, you have an audio page, you have a special effects page, you have an export page, things like that. So what the company behind it, it's called Blackmagic. They make cameras and all sorts of different things, but they ported DaVinci Resolve to the iPad and they brought the cut page, so your editing page, and the color page, so your color grading page. And they took some of the features that are in the other pages and sprinkled them throughout the app so you can like export your videos and stuff like that. And you can use this as a full video editor and it works really well. I've been using it. I've been running through some tests on it. I'm working on a bigger video about like kind of my workflow with it. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, earlier in the show, I worked from the iPad for 5 years. I edited all my videos on the iPad and I had to give that up because the app I was using got a little buggy. But DaVinci Resolve is, it's got a huge name behind it. And it's something I'm really excited about. It's touted to work really well with the M2 iPad Pros, but I can say it works really well with the M1 iPad Pros as well. It does work with some of the older ones, but you might have some performance issues. The nice thing about it, though, it's free. It's free to download and it's free to use. If you don't need any of the advanced stuff, like, and I'm talking like really advanced stuff, like above 4K, if you're shooting something that's wider than 16:9, most of the really advanced stuff, I think most people wouldn't use. There's only a few of the advanced features that I use every day. And one of them is the fact that I shoot at an aspect ratio that's wider than the normal 16:9. But DaVinci Resolve is the real deal. I would say we've had some pro apps come to the iPad, but this is the first true desktop pro app to come to the iPad. I'm very, very excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those moments where people are going, finally. This is something we've wanted for so long. We've got this very capable device, and we want to be able to use it to the best of its ability, especially with the screen that you have with the iPad Pro. And I mean, I know a lot of people who like to do editing on their iPad because of the touch controls and some of that. And in fact, this next pick that you have is one of those examples. I know a lot of people now who use their iPad to do audio editing by way of Ferrite. So tell us about your use of that.
So Ferrite is kind of the other side of coin of DaVinci Resolve. It's an audio editor. It's built around spoken word audio. And what's really cool about it is it just got a new version. Ferrite 3 just came out, and the developer behind it went through and rethought the UI, and it just makes so much more sense now. Before, it used to have like these circle kind of like very traditional old school desktop like knobs that you would adjust, and they were kind of hard to control with just your finger and stuff. And now they're traditional sliders and stuff like that. One of my favorite features about Ferrite is it has what's called strip silence and then tighten audio. So I've used it for podcast editing in the past. I've used it for voiceover stuff for videos. And what I do is I'll, sit down and record and all that stuff. And you hit strip silence, takes out all the bits where no one is talking in the recording, and then you can tighten all that audio. And it does that's a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to spoken word audio right there, done for you. It's really nice. But my favorite feature is with Ferrite 3, there's now 2x playback. So I'm one of those people.
Oh, that is nice.
Yep. Micah knows where I'm going. So when I edit, whether it's video or audio or whatever, I do not want to listen back at 1x. I don't like the sound of my voice. I just want to get through it. So I use 2x playback for video editing, for audio editing, and DaVinci Resolve does have 2x playback, which I'm very excited about. So this will basically let you play back at 2x. You can chop things up and just get through edits so much quicker. It's so unbelievably nice to have. My friend Chris over on the Daily Tech YouTube channel, he's the one that got me started on doing 2x audio playback when it came to editing, and I can't go back. It's too slow of a process now. In fact, I've even remapped keys in like Final Cut and stuff so that I can hit 2x playback even faster than the default keyboard shortcuts.
Oh man. So on very rare, because we hired an editor for Clockwise, the show that I do on Wednesdays with my pal Dan Morin. And so most of the episodes are now edited by our editor. However, on very rare occasions, our editor is unavailable. And so we go back to the days where Dan and I would swap between editing the show. And I use and have used for years, for podcasts that I've done for years, Adobe Audition as my podcast editor. I'm not a Logic user, but knowing that I could do 2x speed with Ferrite makes me really curious to potentially do the sort of processing that I need to do in Adobe Audition, but then pop it into Ferrite for the actual editing. Because yes, that's the one thing that made me almost switch to Logic was that ability to speed up playback while I was listening in order to do the edit, versus the way that it works in Audition, where it kind of messes up the clips. Ultimately, there's no way to just kind of make things play faster. So that is an interesting thing that I'm going to have to try for sure, because I have always thought that people were just kind of using it because it's like, oh, I can actually make this happen on my iPad. But the fact that it has some features that I would want as well, and is not Logic, because I don't like Logic.
Yeah.
That is really interesting. So I'm going to have to give it a go for sure. A real try. All right, let's talk about utility applications. These are very useful apps. And the first app I'm excited to hear you talk about, because it is one that I use as well. How can I get some custom fonts onto my iPad or my iPhone? How do I get custom fonts loaded in on my device?
Yeah, so Apple tried to make this whole system easier, but they made it way more complex because nobody ended up adopting it. So technically, there are, I think, 2 apps on the App Store that you could download, and you could just buy apps from them and they install. But like I said, there's only 2 apps that support it, and they don't have a ton of fonts in there. And most people have already bought fonts or used fonts that are free of copyright, or that they have the rights to use, or whatever. Anyways, already. So I use an app called Fontcase. Fontcase allows you to import your font files right from the Files app, so you can save them to iCloud or Dropbox or whatever storage cloud storage thing you use. But you import them right into Fontcase, and then there is an install button in the top right corner. You hit that, and it installs a profile onto your device. Now, profiles can get a little weird, because you shouldn't just install random profiles from the internet, because they get access to a lot of under the hood stuff that typical apps don't get access to. But this is just installing font files. So this installs these fonts to the system level. That's why it needs the profile. So that apps like Photoshop or Drafts or Runestone or a whole bunch of other apps that support fonts can get access to them. So I use this in Runestone to call back to import my monospace font that I really like, JetBrains Mono. Hands down my favorite monospace font ever. So good. So I import this, and it allows me to install JetBrains Mono onto my iPhone and my iPad. Apple could really make this whole process simpler if they just brought FontBook to the iPad and the iPhone, but
yes,
I don't know why they don't. I don't know why they just didn't do that in the first place. Like, they made it way more complex with the system that they put in place, and nobody uses it. When I say 2 apps use that, I exaggerate a lot. I'm not exaggerating here.
Yes, it is one of the most complicated things. And then to get people to feel comfortable installing a profile on their device is also not easy.
Yeah.
And basically, like you said, there are maybe 2 apps in the App Store that do this. The other option is using Adobe Creative Cloud. If you've got a Creative Cloud subscription that lets you install fonts, you can use that. But I don't know how Adobe is doing it. I don't know what process they're using to make it happen, because it seems like some special magic that they get to do that others don't or something. I don't know what their process is, but if you have the Creative Cloud app, then you are able to log into your Creative Cloud account and install the fonts. And I was able to work with them on some other apps that weren't just Adobe's own apps. But yeah, the built-in font system, I mean, for years I've gone in. So you launch your settings and you tap on General on the side, and then you scroll down until you see fonts. It's between, in most cases, it's between gestures and language and region if you're on an iPad. And when you tap on that, it says no fonts installed. You can download apps that install fonts from the App Store. When you tap on Open App Store, it just takes you to the apps page, to the main page. There's this is not what I need.
I think Apple thought that feature was going to take off, and from what I understand, the rules behind that feature it was never going to take off. Like, the only way Apple could make this easier is if they just brought Fontbook to the iPad, which please Apple.
Yeah, I'd love it. I'd love that. I wish they would.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one, and maybe we'll do a quick hit for these next 3 since we are going to start running up against time. So I'll try not to ask you too many questions about them, starting with TimerE for Toggl, which I can't wait to hear about what Toggl is, and then also how TimerE is used for Toggl.
Let's start with Toggl. So Toggl is a time tracking service. It's a web-based time tracking service. I do not think everyone or most people need to do time tracking. I'm self-employed. I'm somebody that has ADHD. I want to know how I'm spending my time. So I use a time tracking service to manage my time. For example, right now I have my time tracking going that I am guesting on a podcast. So that way, when I go back and look at how I spent my week or my month or even my year, I can see like, hey, this is all the time that I spent doing different tasks, whether it's editing video, filming videos, doing admin tasks, research for stuff, all sorts of things. That's what kind of Toggl does for you. But Toggl doesn't have the greatest iOS or iPadOS or even macOS app. This is where TimerE comes in. TimerE is a front-end app for Toggl. So when you download it, you log into your Toggl account, and it gives you the ability to create a bunch of save timers. It gives you a ton of shortcuts actions. I built so many complex shortcuts using TimerE. It's awesome. It also gives you amazing widgets so that you can just start timers right from the home screen. Report widgets. You can see your reports for the week, the month, right in TimerE. So I never really actually log in to Toggl's website anymore. I just use TimerE, which it works fantastic. It's such a good app if you are somebody that wants to do time tracking. And I should mention that I do it because I'm self-employed, but Toggl also works really well if you have to time track, like if you have clients or something and you need to like track the time you're spending on each individual client. Toggl is really good for that as well.
Nice. All right. Well, tell us about, and I saw this one and thought, oh, I think I need this one. Highlights, PDF reader and notes.
I love highlights. I get a ton of reviewers guides or tech specs or just like, hey, here's a sponsorship guide or something like that. And companies like to put a lot of fluff in those. They make them about 10 pages longer than what they actually need to be. So what highlights does is it allows you to open up that PDF document and gives you a bunch of different tools like highlight, underline, strike through, all that stuff. And you can go through the document, highlight the bits that you want, and it pulls all that stuff out. And if you're on the iPad, it moves it on into the right side of the document. So basically the app is split into 2 columns. On the left, you have the PDF. On the right, it has all the bits that you pulled out of it. So what I'll do is if I get like a reviewer's guide or something like that, I'll go through it and be like, okay, what's actually the important information in here? And I'll just pull that out and it'll just be on the right hand left-hand side, so I can then ignore the PDF document. So I just have the important bits. It's a really nice way to go through those big documents and just have the important stuff come out. I can probably see this for like lawyers and stuff. Like if they're like underlining or redlining like certain bits, like you could use that. You could use highlights to pull all that stuff out as well. It's just a really nice app to have if you have to go through a bunch of PDF documents.
Nice. And then last but not least in utilities is Lumy. Tell us about Lumy.
Lumy, I love Lumy. I think Lumy is probably the best designed app on the App Store. It does a really simple thing. It's great for photographers, and I'm sure other people in different industries or just people in general might like it, but it tracks sunrise and sunset. For photographers, sunrise and sunset is called golden hour or magic hour because the light is really low and it looks really nice. And so you use this app to like know, okay, hey, this is the time that I'm going to go out and take photos today or something. And it's just a really well built app. Like it's beautifully designed, but my favorite part is the widget. The widget just looks gorgeous. It's a great app. It's one of those apps I don't even need on my phone every day, or I don't even use it. I probably only use it like once a month, but it's just so well designed. I have the widget on my iPhone.
Nice. All right. Let us round things out for the first segment of the show with entertainment. You've got two apps that, well, again, several, but the two that I picked out. Tell us about Anybox and then tell us about TV Forecast.
So Anybox is a read it later and bookmarking app. So you can save links to it and, go back and read stuff. I use this to save articles I want to check out, YouTube videos I want to watch, but I also use it for like tracking gear and stuff. And I'm really into mechanical keyboards. If you're watching the video, you can see two behind me. So I save all like the parts and stuff that I find for mechanical keyboards. I save into Anybox. And what's really cool about Anybox is you build these collections out. So I have like articles, YouTube videos, gear, keyboards, and stuff like that. And then you could build smart collections on top of that. So I have a smart collection for read stuff and watch later stuff. And this allows me to kind of like filter out all the gear and keyboard stuff. So if I'm just looking to get caught up on articles and YouTube videos and stuff like that, I can just go through this list. I am like desperate to find like the perfect read it later app. And I think this is the one that comes the closest.
Oh man, I'm always looking for one of those as well. There are lots of options out there. The closest that I got was Tidbyt. But then I stopped using that one as well and went back to my tried and true read it later service, which is I text myself and I just have a little text conversation with myself that has links in it and photos in it and all sorts of different things. And I just go back and look. It's just the problem with it. It's not as searchable as these third-party apps, but I just find myself forgetting that I've got those third-party apps that I can use. And I never forget that I can text myself. But iOS really does not want you to text yourself. And so it makes it very difficult to do so. I literally have to type in my phone number, number by number, in order to get it to pop up and actually suggest me. Yeah, it's like, no, there's no reason why you'd want to be texting yourself. Why in the world have you pinned your own name in the iMessage conversation? What is going on here? I'm confused. I'm like, no, just let me text myself. It's not that big of a deal. So this is the part where Rosemary usually, or even Matthew Castanelli back in the day, would shout, you can create a shortcut that'll do that for you. I know.
I was going to say that, or on top of that, Anybox has a really good share sheet option. So what you could do is you could go into the share sheet, set that as the favorite, make it like the first one. So you kind of just have that reminder when you're saving an article or a video or whatever that, hey, use Anybox. But it's a really good share sheet extension. It's really fast. Nice.
And then did you mention TV Forecast yet? Because this is very clever.
This is hands down one of my favorite apps. TV Forecast basically just tracks upcoming episodes of TV shows that you watch and when they are airing. It just shows you the upcoming date. I absolutely love this app. I'm a big user. Last time I was on the show, we talked about the Apple TV. I'm a big user of the Up Next queue in the Apple TV, but it doesn't always get new seasons. Plus, it doesn't like tell you when something's like gonna air in the next couple of days or something like that. It just, it'll just show up. So I love this for like, hey, like The Mandalorian's coming back, or Star Trek is coming up, or something like that. Like I love this kind of app. It does a really good job. It's really well built. It has a really nice widget that just shows you, hey, this is the next show that you want to watch and when it's airing. And the benefit of this, too, as opposed to the Up Next queue, is this all tracks new seasons and stuff like that, but it also has Netflix support, and the Up Next queue does not.
I love Up Next support.
Yeah.
Anything that does that is great. That's awesome. Well, wow. Those are just some of the amazing apps that Christopher is using day to day or week to week. And so I hope that you've got some inspiration out there for some apps that you might want to check out. I know I did. There were a few as I was going through and said, oh, I got to get that one. Oh, definitely need that one. But let me remind all of you out there, you may have heard us talking about the Twit audience survey. Please, if you have the time or when you have the time, could you head to twit.tv/survey23 and take our audience survey. Why? Well, because it helps us understand who you all are out there. This is the opportunity for us to say, okay, this is what you're liking. This is what you're not liking. This is what you care about. This is what you don't. This is who you are. I'm proud to say that iOS Today remains one of the most gender diverse shows in terms of who is watching the show. And I want it to continue to be that. And so if this show can be as inviting as it has been in the past, or even more inviting, that is my goal. And so heading over to twit.tv/survey23, taking a few minutes to do that would be great. There's no, tracking stuff involved with this. The stuff that you type in is what we get, and that's the extent of it. The survey does end on January 31st. So please head there before January 31st to do that. Hey, if you even want to pause the show right now and head over there and do that real quick, that would be great. Many of us, put the survey through its paces to make sure it was all working. We kicked the tires on the survey, as it were. And so we know it doesn't take you very long to do. So it shouldn't take too much time out of your day, but we would appreciate that. And, if you need to, you can log it with Timery for Toggl to see how long it took you to fill out the survey. So thank you for doing that. We appreciate it. Again, twit.tv/survey23. It rhymes this year, so should be easy to remember. twit.tv/survey23. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate it. All right. I've got some quick news items. The first one is a report from Bloomberg that claims Apple may be dropping the use of the Broadcom chip for its Wi-Fi connectivity and its Bluetooth connectivity as well. So we know that Apple for some time has been looking at other kind of components within its phones, within its tablets, within its devices that are currently made by third parties. There's Broadcom and Qualcomm, and they've been looking at those and going, is this something that we could do ourselves? Think about the Mac and how Apple switched from Intel to its own Apple Silicon and what that has meant for Apple's own Macs now and iPads that have the Apple Silicon chip in it. It's been an incredible experience. I am, coming to you on the Mac Studio right now, which has Apple's Apple Silicon in it. Now, Qualcomm, of course, was the company that Apple has been using for some time for the sort of broadband connectivity. Broadcom, it is used for the Wi-Fi, and I'm unclear if Broadcom also makes the Bluetooth. But what I do know is that Apple, according to this report, is going to make a chip that handles both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on Apple devices. So this would be, according to the Bloomberg report from Mark Gurman. This would start in 2025. And it says, quote, in addition, it's already working on a follow-up version that will combine the cellular modem, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth capabilities into a single component. So think about Apple's goals, making slimmer, easier to hold, and lower power use devices at all times. And if you are having to buy components from third parties, oftentimes you have to work the design around those components, around those parts. If you can make them yourself and you are in complete control of the way that they look and work, that can make all the difference. And I think one example of this is this studio display that's in front of me. When iFixit took apart the studio display and looked at the components inside, the power supply for the studio display was incredibly unique. And part of that was because, Apple was in charge of how that all ended up being put together and made. And so I think the same applies here, where you've got Apple not only not having to make deals with third-party companies and try to figure all of that out, but when it reminds me of group projects in school and in college. And it's like, I could rely on all of you people to help me get this done, or I could just do it myself and then I'll know that it's good and ready to go, right? Like, that's kind of what Apple's doing here. I have a question for you though, Chris. Have you had a MacBook with a butterfly keyboard at any time?
No, I missed that whole era was when I was iPad only, didn't touch a Mac. I skipped that whole dark period of the Mac, the butterfly keyboards, the only USB-C ports. Yeah, I missed that whole era.
Well, I have to say that is fantastic. Good for you. That is the era to miss for sure. So if you were a part of that, you may be eligible for a bit of a payout. I will include a link in the show notes. We will include a link in the show notes, Kevin, thank you, to not only the 9 to 5 Mac article, but also the website that you'll need to go to in order to sort of figure out whether you are eligible. There are 3 groups that are involved in this settlement. Group 1 obtained at least 2 top case replacements from Apple or an authorized service provider within 4 years of purchase of their MacBook, MacBook Air, or MacBook Pro between 2015 and 2019. Group 2 obtained a single top case replacement from Apple or an authorized service provider within 4 years of purchase, and the repair did not resolve the keyboard issues. And then Group 3 obtained 1 or more keycap replacements from Apple or an authorized service provider within 4 years of purchase, and the repair or repairs did not resolve the keyboard issues. So you have to fit into some specific requirements in order to claim any money in this settlement. Group 1, the group that had 2 replacements within 4 years of purchase, they will receive between $300 and $395. Group 2, who again had a single top case replacement, but didn't resolve the issues, will get $125. And Group 3, which had some keycaps replaced, but it didn't resolve the issues, can earn up to, will get up to $50. I have to say, this is always very interesting because what you may make out of it and what you end up making out of it can sometimes be 2 different things. You may remember the huge Equifax data breach not too terribly long ago. I just got my payout from that settlement, a whopping $14 and something cents to receive a check for $14 and something cents because my data was like stolen and put out into the internet is really quite something. So anyway, just wanted to make everybody aware of that. Again, we'll have links in the show notes so that if you are a part of that group, you can head there and check it out. And I think that we'll round out the news there. Let's move on to feedback and questions. Our first one comes from Clinton, and Chris, I'm going to ask you for your thoughts on this as well. Clinton writes in, I've been having great difficulty with the iOS email signature. I just can't get it to the way I want it to be. I have contacted Apple. Apple senior management contacted the engineers, and the engineers said that they don't support this because it was never a feature, ? I run my business off of iOS, and I need my emails to look professional. The signature attached to this email, which we won't show, was done, and the person spent a lot of time to get it to where it is. It's still not the way that Clinton wants it. Is there anything you could recommend to fix this problem? Outlook and Gmail on the iPad have the same issues too. So one thing here, as Clinton has written in, is obviously we don't know how you want it to look. So I can't give you any sort of direct feedback, but I will say that I use I use two third-party apps. On my Mac, I use AirMail, and on all of my iPhone and iPads, I use Spark. And they both have great custom signature support. I am a person who doesn't believe in complex signatures. Like, don't ever put an image in a signature. It's just adding, like, I don't want that in my inbox. I don't want, like, no. So I like a fairly standard signature, but I do have at the most a link in my signature. I don't change, the formatting of the signature with a bunch of italics and bolded areas, and add, different typefaces and change the sizes and all that jazz, because I think people would just like to read the email and be done with it. But hey, to each their own, as we say. But I am curious, Chris, if you have any suggestions. You are a freelance person who, I imagine sends lots of emails. I hope you don't have an image in yours, because that'll be awkward. But tell me about what you do for your signature.
I am 100% with you. Images do not belong in signatures. They cause way more issues than what they do. So I mentioned I do YouTube stuff, but before my YouTube career, I spent 9 years in IT. My last job, I was a senior network engineer, and the company I was working for wanted image. And I'm going to go ahead and assume here that Clinton is talking about images. I'm just going to assume, because you can actually copy rich text into the iOS field. Like if it's just a rich text signature, I believe you can just copy and paste it right into the signature field in settings. But
that's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah, it's images, and like turning those images into hyperlinks and stuff. Like that stuff is not supported. Just don't use images. But what you can do, if you absolutely want to, depending on who your email host is, because I didn't want images in our email signature when I worked at my last IT job. I lost that battle. I was 100% vetoed by all senior management. Vetoed me. It did. I tried my hardest, Mikah. Please forgive me.
I believe you.
What I did, because we had almost 300 people, and I wasn't going to, create 300 different email signatures for people, is I went on the server side. So whoever is your email host, they might have the ability to set up an email signature on the server side and have it auto add that signature no matter what client you're using. So that could be an option. I honestly don't know if that's something in Gmail. I haven't used Gmail in years. I have my own weird email thing. But I know if you have Exchange or something like that, that is absolutely something you can do. If you're have Exchange emails, you can have the signature happen on the server side.
Yes, that's a good tip. So yes, Clinton, there's a part where you say, I run my business off iOS and I need my emails to look professional. I promise you, a more professional email is one that doesn't have images in it. I promise you.
My signature is my name and my email address. And the only reason why it's my email address is because I have a couple of emails and I just want to make sure I'm sending from the right one. It's just like a visual reminder that as I'm typing, hey, this is the email address you are sending from. That's the only reason why it's there. It's not for the people receiving it. It's for me, it's the person sending it. But yeah, just your name. totally okay. No one will think less of that. I don't ever use people's email signatures. I completely ignore them. To me, if something is important, like if you're giving me your phone, if you want me to have your phone number or something, that should be in the body of the email. Yeah,
you'll say it. So yeah, there you go. Those are some thoughts as well as some suggestions. Again, try Spark or Airmail, or as you've pointed out on the server side, if you feel that in your industry, maybe you're in the greeting card industry where the frilliest, most loaded down email is the one that makes you look the most professional, in which case, by all means, don't even use text in your signature. Just use an image. That seems like, that's the other thing. I joke, but the accessibility concerns that I have about people using images in their signatures. I have seen some signatures that were just images. And so you don't know what, if you are not, if you like me block all images from loading in emails, because
that's what I was going to say.
I do that, then you won't know anything that's supposed to be there. So yeah, there are loads of reasons why it does not make sense to do that. And as you pointed out too, and you have experience with that, it can cause loads of issues too, depending on the email service or the email server you're sending to. It may reject it. I mean, it's just not worth it to have this goofy little image in your signature. Okay, we should move on. Oh, unless you have one more thought?
I was just going to say it's accessibility and security, because if your email, like if you're working in corporate America and your IT department has their email server set up right, they do not download images automatically, because that is a huge security risk. That's just what I wanted to point out.
Boom. Okay, the next one is from Bob. Bob writes in, love your iOS Today show. Can you tell me the name of the weather monitor behind Mikah? So here behind me, is a little, it has some, I think, walnut around the outside, wood, and it is a display that is currently showing the weather. And then I also have now added a sunrise and sunset quote unquote app to it that tells me when the sun rose today and when the sun will set today. It is a small display called the Tidbyt, and that's at tidbyt.com. This is a fun little display. It's also one of the most common questions I get now. Somebody's always direct messaging me or emailing me or sending me through some means this question. It is the Tidbyt display. So, Tidbyt, if you're listening, I think it's time for I don't know, something, because I've probably sold, 50 of these things. Anyway, I kid, but this little display is super cool because you can create custom apps for it. So you can set it up with, your own ideas connected to your own APIs, however you want to do. So I could have it to where it lights up every time someone sends me a toot on Mastodon or something like that. It's a lot of fun and well worth checking out. I just have, like I said, the weather, although at night it changes because you can set schedules for when different apps appear on it. And at night I have moon phases. It's funny, anyone who was alive in the 90s, at some point probably then remembers the DVD screensaver where it said DVD and it would hit the sides of the screen and change colors whenever it hit the sides of the screen. So they made one of those for the Tidbyt. So that's a delightful one to have that comes on at night, basically after my shows are over, so it's not distracting in the background. But anyway, there's the answer for you, Bob. Tidbyt at tidbyt.com. All right, last one comes from Dan. Dan wrote in and said, hey, Leo mentioned an iOS app that you provide pictures of you and it generates a number of iterations of you for card creations. And this was at the 26-minute and 50-second mark for This Week in Google. Dan says, it doesn't say what the name of this app is. Any chance you can share it with me? So I went to the 26-minute and 50-second mark in the show, and it was showing the Twit holiday card creation, which is something that our own Anthony Nielsen made using some very special Mac well, it's not even Mac software, really. It's some very special AI software that is not an iOS app at all whatsoever. So this is not something, Dan, that you would be able to do on iOS. But the other possibility that Leo may have mentioned during the show at some point is the app that's called Lensa, Lensa. And with Lensa, you can create sort of AI generated photos using that app, and you pay anywhere from, I think, $3 or $4 to like $15 to create what are called magic avatars. And so I'll show you. Here are some that I have generated using the app. So you give the app between 10 and 20 photos of yourself, and then the app uses AI magic to create some different versions of you. And many of them will come out not looking much like you, but some of them, like this one, I think looks pretty similar to me. But some of them, like this one, for example, kind of looks like me, but also a little frightening. And I'm trying to find one that's definitely not me at all. They can get a little uncanny valley, as it were. Oh, here's one. I mean, my face isn't even in this. At all. And so, yeah, I don't know who that is, but it's a lot of fun to play around with. Dan, if you'd like to check it out. I do like this one of me as a Viking, although one of my eyes is lightly green or blue there. But again, fun. And this one's pretty neat as well. Me with some sort of horn rimmed hat on. This was the Vikings section, and then Sir Sargent the Knight, I guess, as well as the Empire feature. Oh, here's one. Like, who is that? I don't know. Here, hold on. For folks who are listening and not watching, I am trying to mimic the look of the person on screen, and that's why the audio is quiet. Anyway, that is Lensa. You can check it out in the App Store. It can get pretty pricey depending on how many images you're trying to generate. But I've talked before. I'm not going to go into detail about why it costs that much. There's a very good reason why it costs as much as it does, and it's actually quite a fair price whenever you look at what's involved in the process of making it happen. All right. With that, we are nearing the end of the show, which means it's time up next for our app caps. It's time for App Caps. This is the part of the show where we wear caps atop our heads to honor our app and gadget picks of the week. These are the apps and gadgets we are using that we want to share with all of you because we think they're great and we think that you'll like them too. And to show how much we like these apps and gadgets, we wear silly things in some cases or delightful things atop our heads in honor of those picks. So, Christopher, tell us first about the cap atop your head and then tell us about your app or gadget pick this week.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Normally I'd have like a fun, silly hat or something, but everything's packed away in boxes.
You are moving. Exactly. Yeah, so, you're fine.
So I'm like, this is the only hat I had available. But anyways, it's a hat from Yosemite National Park. It's one of my favorite places on the planet. I go up there and I do a lot of photography stuff up there. It has no connection to the app I'm going to talk about, but it's the hat I had available. So I love this hat. It's kind of like the old school trucker hat with the mesh back. I like that style. But yeah, the app I want to talk to you about is called Game Track. This is an iOS app. That you can track upcoming video games or games that you've played or games that are in your backlog or in your collection that you want to get to at some point. For me this year, I want to play a lot more video games this year. I didn't play a lot last year. I got really busy with work stuff, and I spent some time the other night just going through and being like, okay, here are the games in my backlog I want to play. Here are the games that are coming out this year that I want to track. And it's just a really cool app if you're somebody that's really into video games and you want to like be able to track your collection, rate the games you played, and just like kind of like, just see what's coming out.
Nice. I will have to check that out for sure. Not so much for me, but for my partner, especially, who checks out the new games when they come around. So available, as you said, for free in the App Store. That's fantastic. We like that option. That is Game Track, which of course we'll have a link for you to check that out in the App Store. The cap atop my head, I believe it's one I've worn before on the show, but it's a really nice sort of, I would say, grape colored bucket cap. Protects you from the sun, looks fun. And I kind of like this sort of purple green thing I've got going on, although now I'm thinking of Barney, and that is not where I was going with this. Anyway, the app that I want to talk about today is SongShift. This is kind of an oldie but a goodie. And this is helpful if you have people in your life who are, or maybe you yourself are either multi-music streaming service user or an alternate music streaming service user. So an example of this is I use Apple Music for almost all of my music stuff. I have a subscription to Spotify as well as Apple Music. And Spotify has always been and will continue to be a great DJ. I love to use Spotify when it comes to just like playing random music throughout the day that I will like. Whereas Apple Music is the place where all of my albums exist. And most of the time I am an album listener. So I think in terms of what album do I want to listen to, and I'll go through and listen to the whole thing. Playlists more are Spotify for me. Now, I am an Apple Music user. My partner is a Spotify user and has been for as long as I've known him. So when I find music that I think he would like, and I want to share it with him, I would have to go into Spotify, type in the name of the music, find the link, and get it there. What SongShift lets you do is kind of do that automatically, but it can also help you if you've got multiple platforms that you're using, translate your playlists between those. And so, and a great example of this is I have, many years ago, I created a playlist called Pieces of Me. And it was a playlist that featured music that I would listen to just all the time. And over time, I would add more and more music to it. I created it on Spotify. And I think I created it on Spotify before Apple Music even launched, which now, oh man, let's see. Apple Music launched when? Apple Music launched on June. Yeah, 2015. So you were close. June 30th, 2015. So I created this playlist before Apple Music launched, and now I'm feeling old. But anyway, I wanted to have that playlist on Apple Music, but I was being lazy about it. And so I just kind of added some songs to Apple Music. Then I found SongShift. And so what it lets you do is not only sort of transfer playlists between music services, but you can also continue to monitor those playlists. So as music is added, it will then add it to the playlist on the other platform. So I'm going to tap the plus button in the top right corner, and I am going to go to Apple Music and I'm going to go to playlist. And then I'm going to look through and see some of the playlists that are here, including my top rated, recently added. And I will find, let's see, something called, Eat. No, let's not do that one. We will do, there's Replay 2022. So if you did your replay, your Apple Music replay, then you might want that. I know what we'll do. We'll do The Funeral. So this was a playlist that I created based on the song The Funeral by Band of Horses. And then it says, what playlist would you like to transfer? I chose that one. I choose Confirm. And then it asks, okay, where are you wanting to send it? You can send it to Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube, of course, Apple Music, if you were using a different service, or you can export it as both a JSON file or a text file. I want to send this over to Spotify. So I will tap Spotify and then I will tap Start Shifts. What it is doing now is looking through that playlist, The Funeral. It is finding the comparison on the other service. and then it is trying to match those. So now you'll see that I've got all of these playlists that are complete and monitored. That means that the service is paying attention to those and adding them as I get them. But there's the one that says review. That's the funeral. So now what I do is I scroll down and I can see the funeral matched with the funeral, sleeping lessons matched with sleeping lessons, Janglin from Edward Sharp and the Magnetic Zeros is matched, Weekend Wars from Management, Make Light, Psychotic Girl, Hopi Pola, which is Siguros, et cetera, et cetera. I go through and I just make sure that they all match up, and it looks like they do. And so now I can tap up here and choose confirm matches. Now, if any of those didn't match, I could go and try to find the actual match, or I could ignore one and just say, hey, don't worry about trying to match that. Once I tap confirm, then it will send that shift over to Spotify. And now that playlist exists on Spotify and it's good to go. I can easily, if there's a playlist that I want to share with someone, I can tap on the sort of bands that are up here in the top right corner, the bands of blue, and choose share. And then it will create a link that I can then share to either messages or via AirDrop or Instagram. However I wanted to share it, I could share it that way. And now I've got all of these different playlists that are being monitored to make sure that they match up across the different services that I use. There's also a built-in, it's like Shazam, it's a music matching feature so that you can actually have it live listen to songs. And then in the music services section, you'll see these different music services that are available. There's Apple Music, Amazon Music, Deezer, Discogs, Hype Machine, Last.fm, Napster, Pandora, Qobuz, I don't know what that one is, Spotify, Tidal, and YouTube. So any of these you can use, and at any time you can kind of change the default destinations, meaning that typically if I am using Apple Music and trying to transfer it to somewhere, where would that be? By default, it's probably going to be Spotify. So I can go ahead and set that up. There's also the little app icon in the top right corner. That means that if I tap on that, it'll launch the app that corresponds to this music service. Or on the right, that will launch a web page that corresponds to the music service. It's just fantastic for making sure that your playlists are matched up between services and individual songs can be matched between services. And so Song Shift on in the share sheet is a great way to, as I mentioned, say, okay, I've got this Apple Music song. I want to send it to someone who uses Spotify, translates it to Spotify, sends it off as you need to. You can use it for free, and I think it gives you one playlist for free to sync between. It's $4.99 a month, which could get pretty pricey, but it's $20 a year. So one time per year, you pay $20, you get constant music monitoring and the ability to transfer between the two services. I think it's well worth it to make sure if you're a multi-music service user, or again, if you've got people that you want to share with, then this is great to do that. Or, use it for a year, get those playlists transferred over and be done with it. It's totally up to you. But that is Song Shift in the App Store. So well worth checking out. And with that, we've reached the end of this episode of iOS Today. If you have thoughts, questions, feedback, concerns, etc., you can send those to iostoday@twit.tv. Rosemary Orchard will be back next week to answer your Shortcuts Corner requests. So also get those in at iostoday@twit.tv. This show records live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, which is 9 a.m. Pacific. You head to twit.tv/live to check it out live. Or if you want to get the show as soon as it's available and sort of prettied up, touched up, and good to go, well, head to twit.tv/iOS, because there you will find a way to subscribe to the show in audio and video formats. We try to make the audio version just as sort of digestible as the video version. Always open to feedback. If there's ever a time where, Mikah, you didn't say what you were showing on screen, let me know about it. I want to know. I want to make sure that it's accessible to everyone. But there you can click to subscribe to audio or video and check it out. I should also mention that you can become a supporter of the network, a supporter of iOS Today, and a really cool person by joining the Club Twit, at twit.tv/clubtwit. When you join, starting at $7 a month or $84 a year, I say starting out because you can actually choose to pay more. Some of our some of our subscribers have decided to do that or asked to be able to do that. You will get access to some great things. You will get access to every single Twitch show with no ads. So because you are supporting the content, then you kind of fill in the place of the sponsor. So you get ad-free versions of every single show. You also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, and access to the Club Twit Discord. That is a fantastic place to go to chat with your fellow Club Twit members and also those of us here at Twit. You also get some other things. Yeah, we keep making the club more and more valuable. There are some shows in Club Twit that you can't get anywhere else. The Untitled Linux Show, which is, as you might imagine, a show all about Linux. The Hands-on Windows program, which is from Paul Thurrott with short format tips and tricks for Windows, and my short format show. It is Hands on Mac, which is all about Apple, not just the Mac, but iPhone, iPad, little tips and tricks to help you along the way. And all of that is available to you whenever you subscribe. So it's not like you get it and then you need to pay 99 cents more or something like that. All of that comes together. You get it. It's fantastic. twit.tv/clubtwit. Now, Christopher Lawley, of course, thank you for joining us. If folks want to follow you online and check out all of your great work, where should they go to do that?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube primarily. I'm Chris Lawley there, Lawley, or Christopher Lawley. I forgot my old name for a second. Or you can go to the untitled.site. Some people think that name's clever. Some people think that name's lazy. I thought it was fun. But it has links to all my stuff there, including Mastodon, Instagram, all the projects and stuff that I do.
Nice. All right. Well, folks, with that, it is truly time to say goodbye. Oh, forgot about me. You can find me at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. So that's the site to find out where you can find me. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you've been inspired by these fantastic apps. And Rosemary Orchard and I will be back next week for another episode of iOS Today. But for now, we say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Hey, I'm Rod Pyle, editor-in-chief of AdAster Magazine, and each week I join with my co-host to bring you This Week in Space, the latest and greatest news from the final frontier. We talk to NASA chiefs, space scientists, engineers, educators, and artists, and sometimes we just shoot the breeze over what's hot and what's not in space, books, and TV. And we do it all for you, our fellow true believers. So whether you're an armchair adventurer or waiting for your turn to grab a slot in Elon's Mars rocket, join us on This Week in Space and be part of the greatest adventure of all time.